Hi, everybody. This is Arnold Hamilton, editor of the Oklahoma Observer at our offices in Oklahoma City, along with longtime Observer correspondent and well-known provocateur Richard Fricker in Tulsa. And we're here for another round of analysis commentary on the week's big events. And Richard, I see you're getting ready for a Veterans Day. We want to salute all our veterans out there. And we actually are going to talk a little bit about veterans and the Oklahoma National Guard here in a minute in terms of what the governor's been up to. But first, I wanted us to visit a little bit about the governor's rather remarkable broadside aimed at educators here in the state who dared to criticize her baby, the A to F grading system, which has been a remarkable debacle, actually. And the governor basically says, you know what? If you don't eat your poison porridge in silence and with a smile on your face, you might not get any more money, educators.
That's exactly what she said. At least that's that's the way it looks to people that are not standing in her shadow or behind her skirts. I guess in my sojourn through Oklahoma politics over the years, I've never seen anything like this. I've seen politicians threaten to filibuster. I've seen them threaten to stomp their feet, set their hair on fire. But I've never seen a governor just go public and say, if you complain, I'm not going to give you any more money, even though I've cut your money already.
I think it's a sign of hubris gone wild. The governor does not have an opponent yet, and I think she's beginning to feel pretty confident that she's storming into a second term and that she's somehow bulletproof. But I'm with you. It's a rare thing where an elected official like that, a governor, is so overt in what amounts basically to political bullying. What she's telling.
That I mean, I understand her could be her being upset with the superintendents. I can understand the superintendents being upset with Education Secretary Barisi. I can understand a lot of that, but ultimately, the people that are paying the freight on this are the children and parents in the public school system. Those are the ones that are going to get beat over the head by this, and they're sort of the collateral damage for the governor and Barisi and the Tea Party ideology, which is aimed at disassembling public education.
Well, and how smart is it politically for her to take a big stick and whack educators in this state? That's a pretty big base of voters in this state. And while they've been tending to vote Republican in more recent years, this is the kind of thing that you would think, at least in my mind, awakens the ghosts of House Bill 1017, Henry Bellman's great education reform measure that was brought about because teachers walked out of the classrooms and to the Capitol and went round the Capitol like Joshua at Jericho until they got something done.
Well, that's true. And for those of us who remember back when they hammered that out, all sides, Republican and Democrat, and that's basically all you had at that time. There's no Tea Party. Received great accolades for their bipartisan effort to, and they did. They got an anvil, a political anvil, and hammered out 1017, which was going to take Oklahoma education into the next century, which it did.
Mm-hmm.
Which it did.
Yeah, it was even praised. It was even praised by the Wall Street Journal, which is, about as far right an editorial page as you'll ever come across. So when the Wall Street Journal tells the nation that it's cutting edge and that people ought to take a look at it, you would think that Oklahoma would have hung on to that as opposed to rolling back those reforms over the years.
True, and it amazes me that the legislature, which has educators in it, or former educators, would allow this to happen. It also, I find it interesting that there's not been a large uproar by citizenry in a state that prides itself on local rule for their education systems.
Well, yeah.
I kind of wonder where is the outrage, except it's coming from superintendents, it's not, and educators, it's not coming from the people.
Well, this also appears to me to be the rankest sort of hypocrisy because, of course, the governor's office argues that that they have to that educators and superintendents ought to just get off this thing because it is, after all, the law and they ought to follow it. But it certainly doesn't stop the governor and Republican leadership in this state from doing everything possible to try to undermine the Affordable Care Act, which also happens to be the law. But I guess it's a different matter if it's a law that she wants to support or a law that she wants to oppose. She
right.
evidently has decided she's the final arbiter.
Of this, and Breezy made it quite clear last year, or perhaps as early this year, that she's setting aside money in her budget for charter schools and online schools. And if you downgrade your public school system, there's going to be a lot of people go, well, I can get my kid a better education by a charter school or online, whatever, and maybe get a few bucks out of it. That leaves the people that cannot avail themselves of that kind of in the pool of dirty water because less and less money. I know one school here, they had at the beginning of the year 52 kids in a math class and one teacher. And the point I make that time, if you had 52 kids gathered in the city park of various ethnic and economic strata, you'd have a bunch of police there. In the public school system, you had 52 kids and one grandmother.
Well,
nobody seemed to notice.
Exactly. Well, I don't think we've heard the last of this, nor do I think the governor's backpedaling this week to try to now claim that it was no threat delivered here. I don't think we've heard the last of this, nor have we obviously heard the last of the governor's order that the state military department, that the National Guard, not issued Department of Defense ID cards to legally married same-sex couples as ordered by the Pentagon. And it just seems to me that, of course, the governor and the attorney general hide behind states' rights and claim that, the Oklahoma voters instilled in the Constitution back in 2004 by a vote of 75% that marriage is between a man and a woman, so she continues to steadfastly refuse to allow the military department here to issue those ID cards, forcing same-gender couples who are legally married to go to federal military installations to get these things. And has she forgotten the lessons of history? Has she forgotten about the Little Rock Nine and about George Wallace standing in the door at the University of Alabama? Federal law trumps state law in these matters.
Well, you're absolutely right. And the other thing about those two guys, what happened is the National Guard in those states got federalized. Now, for people that want the government out of their lives, so they say, or actually they want the government out of their lives, but not out of yours and mine. She runs the risk of having that National Guard taken away from her because they can federalize those guys at any time and say, this is what we're going to do. And if she tries to deny them access to their armories, now she's got a real problem. And the marriage equality issue is rapidly becoming a non-issue because many more states are recognizing these marriages, and corporations are, insurance carriers are, and Fallin is way, way behind the curve on this, as are her minions that support this. And if I were a commissioned officer, I would have some grave questions about what do I do if my troops, the Pentagon says my troops get this, and I'm not going to give it to them. Well, where do they go now?
Well, and it seems to me that, not only are they on the wrong side of history here, but that the governor and the attorney general have put, how would you like to be the adjutant general of Oklahoma, who's got conflicting orders from his superiors in this case? It seems to me that the governor has decided to side with bigotry and hate here and put the National Guard, our real heroes in this state, in a terrible position.
Well, it goes back, and we were talking about veterans. I've got a quick veteran story about a young man returned from the U.S. Navy. He'd been in Vietnam, and the local small-town Oklahoma American Legion gave him an award, or a certificate of thanks, etc. And that was well and good, and a good time was had by all at the luncheon. And a few days later, he had a date with the daughter of one of these board members. He arrived at the front door and told that the board member did not allow his daughter to date Catholics. And so the guy said, "Wait a minute, you just gave me an award for serving my country, but I'm not good enough to date your daughter." Well, these guys are good enough to go fight and die, and many of them did die, but they're not good enough to get the benefits of full citizenship.
Well, that tells you where the level of our leadership is in this state right now. You always have to have somebody, it appears, to lord it over and to be considered a lesser than. And right now, it's clearly acceptable in wider quarters in Oklahoma to hold up members of the LGBT community for ridicule and scorn. And, again, I think Oklahoma and the governor are behind the arc of history here. And the question is whether or not they will pay a price for it at some point, and how soon that will be.
Really is disturbing here, not only that it's degrading to good people, but also as far as the people of Oklahoma overall. None of this has a darn thing to do with governance.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't fix a road. It doesn't light a street lamp. It doesn't clean up a stream. It doesn't do any of that, which is what these guys are supposed to be doing.
That's exactly right.
Nothing at all. And I did want to revisit one issue on the education thing very quickly. And that is, I'm wondering, where is the real estate community? Because if you sell residential real estate, and these school grades come out, one of the first things young people ask you is, what kind of school is it? Oh, it's a D school or whatever. And that's going to drive down property values, and that affects everybody. And no one seems to be really yelling about that. And that is the price there, again, that the ordinary citizen is going to have to pay.
Well, and I think as people come to realize these things, that hornet's nest is being stirred, and it will be... this will be a topic for discussion as we head into the 2014 election cycle, what the impact of all this is going to be, because, I don't think we've heard the last of this. Richard, great visiting with you, as always.
Great visiting with you.
And we will talk to you again next week.